My name is Teresa. Standing in the luxurious apartment in Pacific Heights, the smell of expensive candles filling the air, I'm reminded of the long and arduous journey that led me here. It all started on what I thought was just an ordinary birthday dinner, but it turned out to be the moment that shattered my world and rebuilt it anew. The room was filled with the opulent scent of money, crystal glasses glistening, and perfume wafting through the air. Laughter echoed around me, but it felt foreign, as if I was an outsider in this grand celebration. My grandfather, Mr. Thompson, lifted his champagne glass and smiled at me. "Teresa, how did you spend your $3,400,000 trust fund?" he asked casually. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I blinked, once, twice. What trust fund? The clinking of forks stopped abruptly. My mother, Diana, froze mid-gesture, and my father, Richard, swallowed hard, his throat moving as if he'd just gulped down a rock. Grandpa remained calm, his eyes fixed on my parents. Where did the money go? His question cut through the air like a knife. In that moment, under the chandeliers and fake smiles, I realized this dinner wasn't a celebration at all, it was an inquisition. I grew up in a family where silence was equated with success. My parents, Richard and Diana, were part of the upper-class society in Seattle. They lived in a sprawling mansion in Bellevue, with 4 bedrooms, a swimming pool, and a collection of luxury cars. I, on the other hand, lived in a small, shabby apartment in the Pioneer Square area, working as a freelance graphic designer. The walls were peeling, and the pipes hissed, but it was my little piece of independence. I spent countless nights sketching logos while the city buzzed outside. My coffee would go cold beside the overdue bills. Our conversations were always superficial. Calls would start with "how's work?" and end before I could even respond. The last time they surprised me was at my college graduation. I walked across the stage with $80,000 in student loans and a diploma I'd earned through sheer hard work. They hugged me and handed me a wrapped box, saying, "We're so proud." Inside was a book on financial management. That night, I cried in the bathroom, realizing they had no intention of helping me. Despite the hardship, I kept my head down. I paid my rent, skipped meals, and took every freelance job I could find. When my friends posted pictures of their vacations, I'd laugh it off, saying, "One day, I'll have my turn." A week before my birthday, I lost my job. My boss called me into his office and gave me the news. I boxed up my things and took the bus home. My roommate, Lily, my only constant for 2 years, asked if my parents would help. I laughed bitterly. They'll probably just tell me to budget better. That night, I called my mom anyway. "Mom, I lost my job." She replied, "That's too bad, honey, but you'll figure it out. You always do. By the way, we've made reservations for your birthday dinner at Lou Jardin at 7:30. Don't be late." I told her the place was expensive, but she just laughed and said not to be cheap. As the week dragged on, I tried to stay busy sending out resumes and updating my portfolio. But rejection emails piled up faster than I could open them. My savings account dipped below $1,000. Every noise in the hallway made me jump, half expecting the landlord to come knocking. On the day of my birthday, I stood in front of my closet, choosing the only semi-decent option, a black dress I bought for a job interview 3 years ago. On the bus ride to the restaurant, I watched people through the window, envious of their simple, happy moments. When I arrived at Lou Jardin, my parents were already seated. My mother was wearing a designer gown, and my father was in a tailored suit. The table was set with fine wine glasses and silverware I couldn't even name. They greeted me with air kisses and small talk, ignoring my news of losing my job. Then, the door opened, and my grandfather walked in. Mr. Thompson was a tall, silver-haired man with a commanding presence. My mother's smile faltered. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice an octave higher than normal. "Celebrating my granddaughter, of course," he replied, his eyes finding mine. Happy birthday, Teresa. He gave me a warm hug, and for the first time that night, I felt like I could breathe. He sat down beside me, ordered a whiskey, and started making small talk. But there was an edge in his voice, as if he knew something none of us did. Then, he raised his glass and asked about the trust fund. The air in the room seemed to freeze. My mother laughed nervously and said, "Dad, you must be mistaken." Grandpa just looked at her calmly and said, "Diana, don't." He then asked the waiter for a private room. Inside the private room, it was colder. Grandpa's assistant, Emily, was already there with a tablet, and his attorney, Mr. Harris, stood beside her. Mr. Harris opened a folder and slid a stack of papers across the table. "Miss Thompson, this is the trust account created in your name. The initial deposit was $1 million, and with market growth, it should be around $3,400,000. But as of this morning, the balance is $200,000. The words hit me like a punch in the gut. My father wiped his forehead and said, "We used some of it to cover the mortgage when the market crashed." Grandpa's voice remained calm. "That's over $3 million, Richard." My mother's hands trembled as she said, "We were managing it for her future. We didn't want her to waste it." I laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh. "You mean like wasting it on rent, student loans, and food?" Grandpa then asked Emily to list the withdrawals. One by one, she read them out: mortgage payoff of $450,000, 2 luxury cars worth $280,000, home renovation of $320,000, and an investment in a real estate project of $500,000. Then she paused. Purchase of a property in Maui worth $1,800,000, registered under Richard and Diana Thompson. My father's face went pale. "It was an investment," he said. "It was theft," Grandpa said quietly. "From your own daughter." Grandpa then demanded the keys to the Maui property. My mother hesitated, then pulled out a key ring from her purse and placed it on the table with a shaking hand. Grandpa slid the keys over to me. "These are yours," he said. My mother started to cry, pleading with Grandpa not to do this. "We're family," she said. "Family doesn't steal from family," Grandpa replied. "You'll hear from my lawyers tomorrow." That night, I left the restaurant with the keys in my pocket and a storm of emotions in my chest. When I got home, Lily listened in shock as I told her everything. "They stole from you," she whispered. "Not just money, but years of my life," I said. 3 days later, I was summoned to Grandpa's office in a glass tower downtown. I hadn't slept well since that dinner. The thought of my parents planning to run haunted me. When I arrived, Emily was waiting in the lobby. "They're here," she said. "Mr. Thompson wants you present." In the office, my parents were sitting across from Grandpa. My father looked haggard, and my mother was trying to smile, but her lipstick was cracking at the corners. Grandpa told me to sit. My father cleared his throat and said, "We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were just desperate." Grandpa interrupted, "Greed, Richard. I know it when I see it." My mother reached forward, tears in her eyes. "We love her, Dad. We were going to tell her eventually." Mr. Harris stepped forward and said, "The forensic audit is complete. We've recovered approximately $2 million through asset seizures and forced sales." My father was in disbelief. $2 million? We already. Mr. Harris cut him off. "You didn't recover it." "We did, through the law." Emily handed me a folder with photos of my parents' purchases. "You should know what they valued more than you," she said softly. I swallowed hard and asked if this was enough to press criminal charges. Mr. Harris said yes, that it was felony financial fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, with a possible sentence of up to 10 years. My mother gasped and begged me not to press charges. My father leaned forward, his desperation showing. We made mistakes, but prison? We're your parents. I looked at him calmly and said, parents protect. They don't pillage. Grandpa turned to me and said, it's your choice, sweetheart. I thought of all the years of silent dinners, the student loans I'd paid off with so much struggle, and the birthdays without real love. I looked into my mother's eyes and said, you left me with nothing. Now you have exactly that. Grandpa nodded to Mr. Harris, and he started to file the necessary motions. My mother sobbed, but this time it was for what they were losing, not for me. As the lawyers finalized the papers, I walked to the window and looked out at the city. For the first time in years, I felt in control. Behind me, I heard Grandpa say, all properties, deeds, and accounts are transferred back to Teresa, effective immediately. When I turned, Emily handed me an envelope. These are your property documents. The Pacific Heights apartment is now fully in your name. I thanked her. My mother whispered, you'll regret this. I looked at her and said, no, for once, I won't. They were escorted out by security. The silence in the room was no longer heavy, it was clean. Grandpa walked over to me and put his hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, he said. I don't feel good, I admitted. Justice rarely feels good, he replied. But it's necessary. That night, I went to the Pacific Heights apartment. The doorman recognized my name right away. When I unlocked the door, the smell of luxury hit me. It was a life that had been stolen from me, furnished with my money. I wandered through the rooms, touching the walls and furniture. On the counter, there was a lease folder with tenants' names and rent deposits. My parents had been profiting from my money for years. I sank onto the couch and laughed, then the laughter turned into tears. They were not tears of grief but of release. Lily arrived 20 minutes later with takeout. You're really here, she said, her eyes wide. I'm home, I replied. We ate on the floor, looking out at the bay shimmering with city lights. Before bed, I texted Grandpa, thank you for fighting when I couldn't. His reply came quickly. You always could, Teresa. You just needed proof. Over the next few months, my parents' assets were liquidated, and the money was returned to my account. They moved into a small motel in Tacoma. Grandpa told me they were paying restitution of $500 a month, court ordered. I settled into the Pacific Heights apartment. I started freelancing again, and clients came in through Grandpa's network. I was no longer scrambling, I was building my life. Lily came over every weekend, and we made the place our own. One evening, Grandpa invited me to dinner. He looked friendlier but seemed lighter. You did what I couldn't, he said. You drew a line. I smiled and said, you taught me how. Driving home that night, I passed the restaurant where it all began. Through the glass, people were laughing and toasting, unaware of how quickly a family could be destroyed by greed. I didn't stop. Some chapters of my life were better left closed. Now, when I look out at the bay, I don't see what I lost. I see what I've rebuilt. If you've ever been betrayed by those you trusted, remember that you can start over, stronger than before.